weaknesses are evident in the divisions within our ranks.
Live from the Nazareth Expo Center, the venue for the ANC's policy conference. Welcome to this special edition of the Watchdog. My name is Vuyo Mvogo. On the show tonight, it's been 9 hours since the ANC policy conference started. We get reflections from some of the men leading the various provincial delegations. Siboniso Duma is the newly elected KZN chairperson. Earlier, I spoke to Oscar Mabuyane, who is the Eastern Cape chairperson. That interview will play for you a little earlier. We'll also bring you some analysis and a status report on how things have gone so far from our esteemed panelists who are here with us. The Watchdog starts now.
So good. I think the environment is okay. There is a decorum in the conference.
What stood out for you in the conversations you've been having in that hall over the past few hours?
I think there's a general consensus from the entire delegation that there is a need for us to change how we do things. There is a lack in terms of implementation of our policies. So there is that outcry. Even the presentation from the president, you could feel that somehow we have not done excellently when it comes to the implementation. So I think this policy conference will want to review that at a strategic level. We're now going to lead the society by ensuring that we respond on time, we are responsive on all the matters that are at the helm of the society.
President Ramaphosa said in his speech that this is a defining moment. And as much as you refer to yourselves as the leader of society, that is not something you should take for granted. It's not something that is a given. It is something you will have to earn. And with the prospects facing, a very realistic prospect, of losing your majority in the forthcoming national election, you've got to work harder to earn that title of leader of society.
It's true, but I think we must also highlight and characterize the ANC correctly. We are the ruling party, but not the ruling class. That's where the problem lies, that in terms of the new dispensation, we have won the issue of political veto, but when it comes to the economy, our people are still suffering. I think that's where our focal area should be. Our prism must just gravitate toward that line, because leading the society, you can't lead the society that is poor forever. You can't lead the society without houses. You can't lead the society without water and all those things, without cleaning. So our area of focus must just go towards that area, that from now onwards, when we address the imbalances of the past, let us ensure that the majority Africans are the ones that are benefiting on almost everything. And they must own the means of production. That's how we'll make the changes. That's why the issue of land will be higher on the process. That's why the issue of state bank is also required.
Who do you blame for that? I mean, after 28 years of ANC rule?
I think the issue of implementation of policies, you wouldn't blame the organization as the ANC only. It will be how the ANC government is structured. I've already indicated that the monopolies are in charge. The private sector must complement the government. The government did indicate that they will create an enabling environment, but the government that is progressive must also intervene whenever there are matters. You go to the banking sector, they will want the collateral each time you want. So as an African, you'll be disadvantaged. So at this point in time, I think the issue of CODESA, the sunset clauses, somehow did not do justice when it comes to us. But I think it's been 27 years already down the line. We must change the tune. We must change how we do things. The pragmatic approach is what is required. How you do it, when we have appropriated 2.1 trillion, why don't you ensure that the large chunk goes towards who are poor instead of giving monopolies to must be involved and be in charge? Because they've proven beyond the reasonable doubt that they don't want to do change.
Well, your president said, I mean, you need to look at what you have not done. And he did, of course, mention a few things that the ANC did not do. But then he implored you to say, you now need to go beyond slogans, beyond just talking, to finding solutions. In his words, come up with solutions, practical solutions.
What's need to be done is also raised that it's true, government must implement the entire budget that has been appropriated, just finish the budget in the financial year. Don't give us explanation. If you have appropriated the budget, Department of Health, Education, Arts and Culture, Sport, Finance, ensure that you finish the entire budget so that you go and take an extra mile. Let us also build stronger branches of the ANC, because the issue of monitoring and evaluation lies with those branches that must be defined as the agent of change. We must be led by branches. Branches must just say that the water has not been in this area for 2 days. It should be the ANC branch that is strong. The issue of road networking, the issue of crime must be identified clearly by the branches, which is the area where you're saying that as the leader of the society, we must be leading almost all the social cohesion principles.
Well, if I heard your president correctly, he says the problem at local government, you will recall he even mentioned conversations that he's been having with the minister responsible for local government, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma. He says the problem is at the interface between the politicians and the administration. Corruption, malfeasance, shortage of skilled leadership, and so on. I mean, those things, many of them, are actually within the control of those who are elected to do something about the very same problems.
He also highlighted the issue of DTM, which is critical at this point in time. 3 spheres of government, in some instances, they work in silos. So the district model was trying to address the equilibrium. So that to reach the equilibrium, just ensure what is planned at the level of national must be implemented provincial, must be implemented in the third sphere of government, the local governance. So I think the issue of corruption is something that is bigger than the mere money that is allocated in the local government. The system, the judicial system must play the role. NPA as well, whenever there is a crime that has been committed, combat that crime by ensuring that you follow the process. Justice delays, justice denied. Just ensure that you arrest those officials who are corrupt, but just go beyond that. Also arrest the business who are also coercing the administration to do in that process, because that's where we don't do. We always say that capitalism is inherent with corruption. Deal with that as well at a bigger scale so that you address the corruption to the T.
Well, he did also say that the differences are not about policies or ideology, suggesting perhaps that, or agreeing with the sentiment that is often expressed by analysts, and everyone else, that the issue here is about positions at local government. The issue is about the pursuit, of access to public resources, and that's the elephant in the room, isn't it?
The policies have not been implemented. In fact, even the resolution, I've already highlighted that as well. When it comes to Splume in the local government, the issue of land remains a problem. In rural areas, for instance, you will require the strength of stakeholders like Amakosi, like the land that is owned by the state. So in terms of government, you need the local government that is stronger when it comes to that. Whenever there are matters of disaster management, national government must act on time, promptly, and ensure that the issue of oversight model is understood by everyone. Synchronize the issue of implementation so that it's clinical. If you have just been given money, if you are not implementing, why don't you take that individual out of the processes as opposed to be giving a lot of policies and over-regulation? I think we've got enough laws at this point in time. What is outstanding is the implementation of those laws that can change people's lives.
Well, the ANC that is supposed to implement those laws is, according to your president, at its weakest since the dawn of democracy. How do you plan to change that?
Yeah, I think we've already mentioned that you must go back to basic, build stronger branches. In China, it's easy because there is a system of meritocracy. In our instances, you will find that because we are also defined as a broad church, you might have someone who is strong in the area but is not a leader, because serious leaders delight in servanthood as opposed to be elected. So let us ensure that you go back to basic by analyzing all the areas, your wards. Make sure that all the stakeholders are involved, the Amakosi, the church, and ensure that the business people in the area are the one that who are also giving the direction so that it become easy. At this point in time, it is cumbersome because those who are at the echelons are few and they are at the level of minorities, so they are the one who controls a lot of things.
Okay, so things going smoothly so far from where you sit. Are you not worried that perhaps over the next couple of days there may well be little curveballs in the form of things like, arguments over, for example, the step-aside rule?
It might come, but what is the worrying factor for us is that on the first day, the staff from the headquarters has not been paid for quite some time. For me, it is also on its own. It's a crime that you cannot run the smooth organization with your staff not have been paid, because that is your machinery. I think we must sort some of those things, and that has to do with the President, the Secretary General, and the Treasurer General. Those are the issues, basic enough that you know there are issues. The issue of step aside will come at some point in time as the resolution, but for me, we are not that fixated on the issue of step aside. We are fixated as to why it has taken so long to create a state bank, why it has created so long not to ensure that we appropriate the issue of land, why it has taken the government so long not to be transformational when it comes to the SOEs. Our SOEs are in a state of shambles. When are you going to implement the policies, transform them, and ensure that you bring back the hope that is required in the society?
Sponsor Tumo, thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you so much.
He is, of course, the chairperson of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. Up next, we bring you analysis from our esteemed panel of analysts here at NASREC. We're going to take a quick ad break. That conversation right after this. Welcome back. I'm now joined by our panel of analysts, Sandy Leswana and Professor Susan Boyson. Good evening to both of you. Thanks very much for your time.
Good evening, Will.
Well, we're told that they've just wrapped up on the other side. They will be back tomorrow now. Just your takeaway from today, starting from when, the chairperson of the ANC in Gauteng, Panyaza Sufi, made his welcoming remarks, essentially set the tone. What the president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa, had to say. Your takeaways, Prof, as we wrap the day?
It was a strange day. It was as if there was some narrative that was not spoken. We heard welcoming and the two alliance partners being slightly uneasy about not having had all the chance to make their kind of policy inputs that they would have liked to push higher into the agenda, to address by President Cyril Ramaphosa that was extensive, but it's also a subdued atmosphere in there. And we know that there is a lot of factionalism, a lot of intense contestation in the ANC, but there was no sign of it. Afterwards, when I spoke to one or two other delegates, they said, "You certainly don't think we're going to fight when all the media are there."
They wouldn't do that, would they? Suddenly, your impressions overall?
I think that there are simple things that could be a sign of better progress, if you like. The simple things I'm talking about is that if you go back to the idea in 2017 of this renewal, new dawn, and then you come here, which is a major conference, the National Policy Conference, and they're struggling to start on time. The partner, which is the SACP, apparently was picketing outside when he was invited to come and deliver the supporting message without any preparation. If that's the case, he puts on.
Well, he said it himself.
That's what he said himself. Now, I think that, and he said he's going to address that, but I think that is a sign of the secretariat of the organization being in disarray. probably the staff, the management of the organization being in disarray at a time when the new dawn is supposed to be maturing now and really delivering warmth and all the things that go with it. And also the long speech that was delivered by Ramaphosa, I think some people felt it was overly long and unfocused. And one Ndlejana was saying this thing is just a basket of things that anybody can latch onto.
In fact, at some point, it almost felt like he read the speech twice.
Exactly, he was starting to repeat himself, yeah. So it was quite something, and there was a danger there because I'd listened at a certain point to Mwako Ramatlhodi. And Mwako said that the issue here, the overarching issue, is the economy. Whatever, the economy is a problem. We can go into that, but that is the issue. And then Ramaphosa also said the overarching issue is the economy. But when you look at the actual speech, it's all over the show. So those were some of the things. And I agree that I think you're looking at an ANC that if we were to use the English language, you talk about an ANC that has got anorexia nervosa, it is on a forced slimming program. It is getting slimmer and slimmer and more skinnier than necessary.
In fact, what Sanile is saying, Prof, is exactly what Bonang Mohale, the president of Business Unity South Africa, said the other day when he came on the program, that you don't have many problems on equality, and you have one problem, it's the economy. Once you sort that out, then you're going to be able to sort the other problem. But did you get a sense from his speech, the ANC president's speech, that is, that he was alive to that, or did you feel that he was just trying to please everybody?
I think he is, one can say, is alive to the need to address the economy and get it right. But whether the policy proposals, documents as we see it, have got those solutions, that is not so clear. And in a way, he was imploring the delegates to find those solutions, actually explicitly saying, but those solutions are not mapped out pointed out at all in the policy proposals. So that is very definitely a big gap in these policy deliberations, and we know how condensed they are in a short time in which they will have to take place. I cannot imagine that they're going to find definitive ways forward. This is a policy conference, only making the proposals towards the final year-end one, but we know from experience when we come to the year-end elective conferences, there is really all electoral politics, and the policies are on the back burner again. So yes, it is almost a once-off situation here, and we look also at the just completed briefings that we had here, where Phoebe Potgieter of the ANC referred to the ANC's existential crisis, and this relates to that economic policies as well. And yet we see a total paucity and a poverty really of the policy proposals we've had there. But just one point, I wouldn't say Cyril Ramaphosa was all over the show, because one of his tasks in this kind of introductory speech is to do a stock taking of all the issues that will be coming up in the different commissions without suggesting the proposals there. But then back to the policy documents, one would have expected the policy documents to go further, to be more definitive, much more definitive, especially on economic policy.
Any signs, that, I mean, from what has been said, so far and done over the past 9 hours, that this particular conference will be any different from, as Prof says, everything we've seen before?
This conference will be different in a certain sense. I think this conference is different. Prof says it is a subdued sort of atmosphere, but I think there's a reason for that. I think the comrades are not as triumphalist as they used to be in previous conferences. The threat is at the door, the threat is imminent of them losing power. So these are sobering moments. Now, the tragedy, of course, is, this is a time of lamentations. I mean, I listened to Thabang Makwetla giving feedback. And he talks about the ANC branch, whereby the ANC branch is largely made up of unemployed people. And the potent, high capacity, high capability people have largely been moved out of the branches. The ANC itself has largely been moved out of the metros into the obscure smaller towns and so on. But what I do not hear him saying is, how do you correct that? He almost seemed to be resigned to that eventuality that there'll be a village political party of some kind going forward. And the other problem, whether this conference will be different from the others, my view is that the ANC, whether it's the DAEFF, any political party and any organization, cannot be better than its members and its leaders. Now, my view is that since the time of Mandela, and Mandela did warn them about this, that the type of person and the type of tendencies that are entering into the ANC, some by new members altogether, careerists, opportunists, and criminals entering the ANC, etc., etc. I think by the time that Mbeki was recalled, then the graph of the negative element, the type of personality, actually started shooting up. The good, the much better quality of Luthuli, that type of caliber, started being lower and lower and lower. And then the cadres that were being deployed were now being pulled from this element that Mandela did not want. For that reason, I think the ANC in many, many ways is an intellectual desert, whereby you will find that even when they say that there is a plan, the plan is never a plan. They have not answered till today the question that Thabo Mbeki asked before the 2019 election, when he said that there is no economic plan in South Africa. Padili Hutla came in and repeated that. Very recently, Ann Benston came and repeated that. So they are flying into it. And we consult to some of these entities, where you find that one of the largest economic provinces in this country, they've only got 30% of the data they need to fit into the model. Since 1994, for the first time, they've got 30% of the data. Otherwise, they've had nothing before that. So they are flying in the dark where the economy is concerned. So the technocratic aspect of governance is not there. Therefore, whatever imaginary policy and dreams, sometimes these things that are called policy documents are actually dreams.
Prof, I want to go to something Sandler said, that it feels it all feels subdued. And after more than 2 decades of covering this sort of stuff, often when the mood, is subdued, it's because no one wants to go first, to throw the first salvo. They're busy sort of sizing each other up and looking at who is going to go the jugular first, and really go and attack the other. And the reason I'm prefacing this with what you said is because I asked both chairpersons I spoke to today, both the KZN and the Eastern Cape chairpersons, as to whether the issue of the step aside isn't the big elephant in the room, isn't in fact what this conference is essentially about. It's just that right now no one wants to really go first. The factions are busy sizing each other up, and over the next couple of days we're going to see the real them actually having a go at each other over this big issue.
Yes, and that is a big elephant in a room. And it's to the extent that many of the ANC, senior ANC people, fearing that it could totally overwhelmed all other deliberations here. And that really, and there was, apparently there's a suggestion somewhere that it should be referred to a commission, to another kind of commission, not one of these commissions here, just to not let it get to dominate so much. But I don't think the delegates are going to allow it. It, as we know from statements of various other provinces, KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo, for example, that they either want it scrapped or totally reviewed, refined, tweaked, whatever the narrative is that they may be using, because their own people are affected. And we heard Ramaphosa saying in this morning's address that I assume he was alluding to that, to the step aside, because he said in that kind of context that the resolutions of 2017 that were the right ones, those ones must be defended and retained. And so I think he nailed his colors to the mast. Some people, cynical people, are saying, but he had to do it in case he gets the pressures become too much and he is wrong-footed on Pala, so that he can say he actually defended it, but it was the pressure of the conference that made him move to agree to it being scrapped or suspended or tweaked basically out of existence. So this is a big thing. What is going to happen to the step aside? And it is ironic because ANC itself acknowledges it's in this existential crisis now, but much of getting out of this existential crisis is to regain the trust of the electorate, the voters out there, that this new, not so new anymore, rather not new dawn anymore, rather new dusk ANC of Ramaphosa's is not something of the past, that it has still got the momentum and the will to act against corruption. That is what voters and I think South African citizens in general out there are really wondering about, whether it was a phony phenomenon, what the Cyril Ramaphosa's new dawn pretended to be or hoped to be at some stage. And ANC's further electoral fortunes are really going to depend on that. We know that Cyril Ramaphosa won in 2018 largely because the ANC knew from reliable opinion polls at that stage that he could bring them the electoral victory, which he did, and asserted a small rise in ANC electoral support at that stage. But it's beyond that now, and now at the crucial time, there is this contest as to whether the step aside can and should be retained. It doesn't make sense.
But are we to assume that necessarily that everyone who supports Cyril Ramaphosa is for the step aside rule? Everyone who doesn't support him is against the step aside rule?
No. I mean, if you understand politics, you would know that for certain parts of the package, I support Cyril. For other parts of the package, I support other people. I am with other people. So, if I was Zizi Kodwa, as an example, or Gwede Mantashe, I would position myself that on this step-aside issue, any variation of that kind of thing, I safeguard myself. And I mean, these are survivalist type of guys. They know exactly how to survive, so they'll be there. With the other thing that sort of tries to appease the electorate, because, and I'm sorry to use a vicious term here, Cyril would have come, if you like, as the sheepskin on top of the wolf that was the ANC that was devouring South Africa, to make that wolf look a little bit more tame, a little bit more attractive and cute and attractive, but it was still the wolf. And those wolves are still inside that ANC. The Zondo Commission has produced lists of them and so on and so forth. So those people are not necessarily supporting. You are not getting 100% support this side. It's a salad. It's a salad.
Quickly, Prof. What is the likelihood? I know that often ANC leaders say people are blowing the step aside thing, especially in the run-up to this conference, out of proportion. But what are the chances that it could be the defining moment of this conference? I'm saying this with tax in mind, considering that it, the Zuma issue was the elephant in the room, and it became a defining moment at that particular conference. Quickly.
Absolutely, it is a defining moment. What happens to the step aside? Because it goes to the heart of the current ANC and its contradictions and problems, and to the whole soul of future elections and ANC fortunes in that.
That's where we're going to leave it. Let me thank both of you for your time this evening. Well, we did have an interview with the chairperson of the ANC in the Eastern Cape. Unfortunately, we are not going to play that right now or tonight, but we're going to go to the last briefing of the day. Instead, we'll bring you that interview a little later, or maybe tomorrow. Have a good night.
To talk about areas of strengthening your work without possibly exposing yourself to that kind of a criticism. However, I began by indicating the progress made so far. And that progress has been acknowledged and applauded globally. The UN Women found that there is no country as yet in the world that has achieved gender parity. So this is a struggle of the world, and I've been part and parcel of some of the UN summits where even in the first world countries, women are still fighting for representation, especially in the private sector. So that we identify weaknesses does not mean that nothing has been done, if maybe that can be read in that context as well. And when we conceptualized the ministry in the presidency, we also didn't want to divert funds that would also go towards mainstreaming of gender programs. For instance, education of the girl child. The budget is in the Department of Education. Health services, the budget is in health, and so forth and so forth. Access to NSFAS. We see more young women graduating, accessing higher education than otherwise. So, but we are saying with the resources that the department has, they need to be strengthened to even do much more oversight work. That is the message. Lizaka, yes, indeed, I think the issue of the top 6 will be discussed in commissions, and we will await the feedback. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks for the questions. Actually, one question asked. Thanks for the questions. Actually, one, but posed in different men. The first issue to emphasize is that as I said on Wednesday, the Zondo report consists of 5,612 pages. So we don't assume that all members of the ANC have read that report. So that's why we are compiling this list of people that we think are members of the ANC. We are busy verifying them. I think by next week we should be able to provide that list both to the SG's office and the Integrity Committee. So that's how that 2 months will pan out. But I do know that I know at least one member who has gone to the Integrity Commission on this, which is very good, which shows that we can be able to move forward on this matter. So I think those were the questions that were asked. About what?
Asked you about capacity and skill at Integrity Committee.
The task team, we took an initiative ourselves which the NEC approved, because we are very concerned about the capacity of the Integrity Commission. So as we speak now, through the SG's office, they are busy trying to increase that capacity in the Integrity Commission. The task team has also met with the Integrity Commission, where we discuss some of the modalities of how we can be able to assist them in ensuring that they can be able to discharge their responsibilities at this moment in time. Thank you.
No, thanks, members of the media. This now brings us to the end of this late night briefing. We will again have more briefings tomorrow of this nature. As and when they finish presenting in commissions, we'll be taking the chairs to come and brief yourselves in this way. Thank you very much, and thanks for keeping South Africa informed about the 6th National Policy Conference of the ANC. Very progressive. Thanks.